I think that when we, as a culture, discuss video games, we really undervalue and underestimate the medium, what it is, and what it's accomplished. In a general sense, I think when people think of video games, they think of a relatively harmless hobby engaged in by mostly people who are millennial or younger that is used to amuse and kill time. And that's not an unfair assessment. However, though I may be preaching to the choir on this, the scope of what gaming is goes far beyond what is typically considered at first thought, I feel. Video games are boundary-breaking works of art that mold and cultivate intellectual stimulation in a way no other medium can, while combining demand of physical form to create evocative and physically engaging experiences that were not possible before the creation of the medium. They have the ability to tell bigger, longer, vaster, more complex, more nuanced, and straight-up better stories than what the bounds of other entertainment mediums allow them to create. They are able to challenge the mind in countless ways, and they transform what would otherwise be completely passive, disengaged lifestyles into active participants of their media that can help foster community with others, a greater sense of self, or a genuine feeling of achievement. These are the attributes of the kinds of games you've generally been seeing on this countdown, but even all of that is a tiny fraction of what video games really are. Video games are the main drivers of smartphone technology, as everyone from 4-year-olds to those 4-year-olds' great-grandparents use those devices to play video games in a more casual context. Video games are the basis of several modern-day training tools that are used at the highest level of several of our most respected fields. Video games are the technology used to make Star Wars now. Video games are some of our most celebrated sporting events, with leagues that are now consistently seeing viewership surpass several American sports leagues like the NBA and MLB, and now we're seeing certain esports events surpassing the viewership of the Super Bowl. Over 3 billion people on this planet play video games. The vast majority of young people play them. Gender demographics have evened out, with some studies even suggesting that there are actually more female gamers now than male. There are countries where less than half of young people have a refrigerator, but over half of young people play video games. When looking at yearly revenue, the game industry is bigger than film, TV, streaming, music, both album sales and streaming, and all of those sports leagues I mentioned previously combined. When you consider all of this, it really makes a show like this feel trite. This show barely sums up just one tiny sector of what gaming is. I don't like esports. I don't like mobile games. It's so difficult to get a handle on what a video game is and how much value a video game holds when the medium accomplishes such vastly different things for different groups of people, and it is killing it in every single category. The question of what gaming should be and what it ought to be to best benefit our society is such a massive one that I certainly have no business commenting on it at this phase in my life. I can't pretend to know everything on this subject, but I at least know what I want gaming to be. In a very general sense, I believe that games should provide engaging, enriching experiences that enhance our lives without becoming our lives. That can come in many different forms and will mean different things to different people. But for my own 2 cents, if you want to know what I think gaming as a medium ought to strive to be, then let's talk about Shadow of the Colossus. It certainly needs no introduction from me. Shadow of the Colossus, from the moment it came out, was the ultimate balance of undeniable work of art and ultra mass appeal power fantasy. A game that truly appeals to all types. You are an unnamed wanderer with no companion but your horse, and there is nothing of note to you to find in this world other than the 16 colossi that you need to take down in order to save your mother, girlfriend, sister, friend, rando on the street. It's not entirely clear. Dialogue isn't really what we do in this game. The world is just as barren as the script. Maybe you remember me talking about how I love games that give you a lot of travel time between key destinations to take in a pretty scene or just think about life for a bit. And when you hear that description, I'm willing to bet a lot of minds immediately jump to Shadow of the Colossus. It's certainly my favorite example. The world is undeniably graphically and artistically incredible and offers just enough stimulation to keep things fresh, from noticing the increasing light beams around the world, to catching a lizard, to finding a safe spot, to seeing a bird and taking your 1 in a million shot to jump up from your horse and try to grab it. The relationship between you and your horse aggro is so much more powerful than basically any other horse in the medium, because you spend half of the game simply riding him, using him for his intended purpose and watching him do his job so well. He's really good at not letting you steer him off a cliff. But I certainly won't pretend like the headline event that sells this game to the masses isn't the David and Goliath-esque Colossus battles. They perfectly live up to their promise. What do you want to do as soon as you see this box art? You want to take down something 1,000 times taller than you, and you don't want to do it because you grew to be their size or got in a giant robot or shot a magical beam at them. You want to do it by the skin of your teeth, crawling, climbing, and clinging every step of the way until you've perfectly outwitted the creature and can plunge your unremarkable sword into its most vulnerable spot. The simplicity and honesty of these encounters is what makes them legendary. There's no explanation, tutorials, or words explained. You just show up, see the monster, and know what you have to do. I look forward to the 13th Colossus each time I play. It perfectly encapsulates what I think are some of the game's best qualities. A perfectly docile giant who not only towers over you, but also flies above you. You need to start every Colossus fight feeling like it's an impossibility, and your sword has quite a bit of distance to go if it's gonna catch up to anything this guy's doing. But as you chip away at him, getting to team up with your horse along the way, the intensity of the creature kicks up, bringing an element of thrilling, necessary speed that culminates in you having to leave your horse behind to dare scaling the Colossus as it flies hundreds of feet above the ground. This perfect escalation of awe, wonder, and intimidation that eventually metamorphosizes into intense, adrenaline-pumping moments of do-or-die intensity is the tone poem of Shadow of the Colossus. Each fight plays this song in one way or another, whether it's laced with an extra layer of dread, or sorrow, or energy, or majesty is all up to who you happen to be going up against. And when you do finally win, the game isn't subtle about it, as it usually takes like 15 seconds for these things to sadly, pathetically topple over, giving you another solid 15 seconds to breathe in the air of your accomplishment before the Venom symbiote comes in and transports you back to the starting line. As much as I personally appreciate subtlety, I think this game's lack of it is a strength, and also why it was able to be such an artsy-fartsy-wartsy hit. People can come in for the inherently awesome premise that is being a guy with nothing but a sword and taking down some Godzilla-sized creatures. But then when you actually get into it, you see that you're a foreigner coming into a strange land and you wander around taking away what little peaceful life it had so that you can try and take back something that you lost. It's not difficult to hear the sad music that plays as these creatures solemnly collapse to get what the game is saying. And all that means is that those masses of people who showed up for a very simple reason are invited with arms wide open to appreciate the deeper artistry of Shadow of the Colossus. The entire mood is perfectly delivered through these drab color palettes, the mystical, mysterious soundtrack that explodes into one of gaming's most cherished, grand orchestra scores upon engaging in combat. The designs of the Colossi are rough and rigid and imposing without looking mean or hostile inherently. Your quest has enough motivation to push you forward, yet there's also enough hints at the naive and youthful nature of our main character to question if he's really thought this through. Shadow of the Colossus completely succeeds as an engaging work of escapism that would be fun and exciting for anyone to dive into, while also being one of our most emotionally evocative works with real messaging to convey. And it does it all without being vague or pretentious, such that it might leave some folks behind, as much as I like qualities like that personally. Anyone can play Shadow of the Colossus, anyone can be intrigued by it, anyone can understand the controls, anyone can resonate with the emotions it conveys, anyone can walk away from Shadow of the Colossus and likely never fully forget how it made them feel. Clearly, right? It's got its legacy for a reason. This is why I decided to open the segment by saying I think gaming should strive to be more like Shadow of the Colossus, because it is that deeper, more enriching experience that can elevate our medium and make people think deeper about the admittedly awesome gaming presence they're indulging in. But it does so with humility and honesty. That means people of all personalities can engage with it as deeply as they want to. You're not going to be called one of our greatest works of art if only a handful of people can hear the message. You need that massive symphony of people across cultures and disciplines celebrating this game for its music, action, aesthetics, symbolism, and so much more to maintain this as one of our most legendary must-play titles that I doubt our culture will ever let go of. Shadow of the Colossus will certainly be getting its yearly playthrough from me for many, many years to come.